Today, we are diving into something really complex, a dynamic that many people experience but maybe don't have a name for. It's called connection captivity. We're going to explore how that fundamental human need for connection can be twisted into a kind of prison. The most striking truth about connection captivity is that the walls of your isolation are built out of deep understanding and unwavering support. We generally assume that imprisonment involves locks and bars, but in these high-pressure dynamics, the most absolute form of confinement happens when someone convinces you that they are the only person on Earth who truly gets you. So, why is it that finding your supposed soulmate or that perfect mentor can somehow end with you feeling like you have no one else to turn to? It's a huge question, right? Well, this is the absolute core paradox of connection captivity. It's that exact moment when your deep need for attachment and validation gets turned into the very mechanism of your own psychological enclosure. Now, just to be really clear, this explainer isn't about diagnosing anyone or pointing fingers. We're not here to label people as good or bad. What we are doing is looking at a pattern, an observable system that can trick the brain into thinking that what feels like ultimate intimacy is actually a form of social desolation. It's like the subtle architecture of control that can be built without a single malicious blueprint, just by a collision of one person's needs and another's vulnerabilities. So, let's put a name on this thing. This isn't just some vague feeling, okay? It's a documented cognitive shift that behavioral science has actually studied. We're talking about the process of monopolizing a relationship. The technical term for it is relational monopolization. And that phrase on the slide, sole source, that's everything. It means one person becomes the exclusive provider for three things we all absolutely need to get through life. First, there's validation, that feeling of being seen and approved of. Second, information, the very lens through which you see reality. And third, emotional support, your safety net. When one person controls the flow of all three of those things, they don't just influence you, they pretty much become the curator of your entire reality.
And listen, this is not some rare, abstract concept. This pattern pops up in some very specific, high-pressure environments. You see it in the love bombing phase of cult recruitment, where someone is just showered with this overwhelming affection to create a fast, intense dependency. It happens in predatory professional mentorships that demand total loyalty and paint every other advisor as incompetent or jealous. And probably most commonly, we see it in these deeply enmeshed romantic relationships where one partner just slowly, systematically becomes the other person's entire world.
This here really illustrates the structural change that happens in someone's life. See, a healthy social world is like this wide net of social anchors. Different friends, family, coworkers who all give you unique perspectives. They keep you grounded. But relational monopolization, it replaces that net with something called incremental ostracism. It's the slow, methodical process of cutting those anchor lines one by one, so subtly you don't even notice. And eventually, all that's left is the single fraying thread holding your entire weight. And the scary part, you often end up feeling grateful for that one thread because it's all you think you have left. So how does this even happen? Well, it's usually propped up by two really powerful beliefs that the person starts to internalize. The first is called the exclusivity hook. This is that seductive idea that a truly real, deep connection is so special it doesn't need any outside input. It's got to be protected from the world. And then there's relational vertigo. This is that disorienting feeling that your old friends, your family, the people who've known you forever are now somehow holding you back, or they just don't get the new you. Your past is reframed as the enemy of your future. And the result of all this is what our source material calls informational starvation. See, when you only get your data from a single source, you completely lose your ability to do a reality check. You stop seeing red flags. Not because you're dumb or naive, but because you literally have no external reference point to confirm that what you're seeing is a red flag. And this creates this terrifying panic at the thought of losing that one person who gets you, which, in a really cruel twist, makes the source of your isolation feel like the only cure for your loneliness. Okay, so now let's look at the playbook, because this isn't random. There is a systematic pattern, a series of steps that are often used to isolate someone from their support system. It tends to happen in 3 stages. Step 1 is the us against the world narrative. The controller doesn't just badmouth your friends. They skillfully reframe your entire support system as being limited or judgmental or even unsafe, and they position themselves as your only protector. Step 2 is the informational throttle. This is tactical. They might create these fake emergencies or lay on these guilt trips that just so happen to pop up right when you have plans with other people. It's a way to physically sever your connections. And then step 3, this is the crucial one, identity dissolution. Once you're isolated, the controller becomes your only mirror. And because we are biologically wired to see ourselves reflected in others to know who we are, you slowly start to see yourself only through their eyes.
This quote really captures the depth of that loss. The target doesn't just lose their friends, they lose their habit of being seen by others. This isn't just about being lonely. It's about losing the muscle memory of your own identity. You know, the version of you that was reflected by a bunch of different people. You forget what it's like to be seen as the funny colleague or the supportive sibling because you're only being seen through one single all-powerful lens.
And this whole process leads to a state you could call social sensory deprivation. Think of it like tuning an old radio. Over time, your brain gets conditioned to believe that every station that isn't the controller's broadcast is just static. A concerned friend's voice just becomes, irritating noise. A family member's advice is meaningless interference. And the controller's input? That becomes the only clear signal. It's a total recalibration of what your brain even registers as truth.
All right, so we've talked about the how, but what about the why? What's the psychology behind this? Let's explore the motive on one side and the vulnerability on the other.
So on one side, the motivation is often about what the source calls total perception management. It's this drive to gain absolute leverage over your version of reality. If they're your only source of information, they can shape how you see yourself, your past, everything. And on the other side, there's this very human vulnerability, the need for ultimate understanding, that deep, powerful desire to be completely and totally known by one person, and valuing the intensity of that feeling more than the quiet, stable support of being known in different ways by many people. They just fit together like a lock and key. And you know what makes this so incredibly hard to break? Our own biology. It's a principle called biological dependency. Our brains are hardwired to seek safety and comfort from our primary attachment figure, even, and this is the key, even when that person is the one causing our stress. It's a cruel paradox, isn't it? The person causing the anxiety is the only person the brain thinks can soothe it. And that creates this powerful loop that makes leaving feel not just hard, but biologically impossible. Okay, so understanding the mechanism is the first huge step. Now, let's talk about empowerment. Let's talk about awareness and reclaiming what we can call your social sovereignty. So let's just start with a really direct question for a little self-reflection. Just take a look at your life right now. Your connections, your support system. Has your once diverse social circle kind of shrunk down to a single dot? Is there one primary person you turn to for absolutely everything while all these other important connections have just sort of faded away? Our source material offers 2 really practical tools for recognition. First, there's the Social Diversification Audit. This isn't about judging yourself, it's just about an honest look, a conscious effort to look at your relationships and ask, has what I'm calling closeness actually turned into confinement? Has my world gotten bigger or smaller because of this person? The second tool is external anchor awareness. This is about taking an intentional, active step to maintain at least 2 connections that have 0 link to that main person. These are your independent reality checks. They aren't just friends, they are your anchors to a world outside the bubble. And using these tools can lead to this really powerful internal shift. It's a reclaiming of your own mind, represented by the mindset you see here. My life is a private territory. It's that profound realization that you are allowed to have thoughts and friendships and parts of your life that someone else doesn't have access to, that they don't manage and that they don't validate. Your sovereignty starts with that simple, powerful idea. So let's bring this all together for the final takeaway. After looking at all of this, what is the core truth? What is the freedom that comes from real connection? It's this. This is the clearest litmus test there is. Genuine, healthy connection, whether it's love, friendship, mentorship, whatever, it expands your world. It acts like a gateway, not a gatekeeper. It introduces you to new people and new ideas. It celebrates your other relationships because they make you a more whole person. It never, ever asks you to choose. And that brings us to the final, critical point from our source material. A connection that requires the death of your other relationships is not love, it's an acquisition. It treats a person not as a partner to grow with, but as a territory to be conquered, controlled, and owned. Ultimately, the greatest defense against this kind of dynamic is just awareness. The awareness that genuine connection should make your world bigger, not smaller. It's about making sure you always have access to your own thoughts and your own people. Remember to breathe your own air.